On this episode, we talk with the former police chief of Santa Rosa, California, about their problem with pedestrian fatalities, and with an inventor who has responded with a flashing crosswalk. We learn about the Bay Trail, a 400-mile mixed-use trail that circles San Francisco Bay. Then we take a look at how Berkeley has made actuated signals bicycle-friendly. Our intersection of the month is in traffic-clogged Tysons Corner, Virginia. Federal iced tea legislation helped to build a popular trail in Maryland. And finally, we have an experienced cyclist tell us about trail etiquette on a mixed-use trail. Stay tuned. We're in Santa Rosa, California with the former police chief, Sal Rosano. Tell me, what were the problems you were having here with pedestrians?
Well, what happened here is not unlike what happened in many cities. In 1991, for instance, we had some 40 vehicle pedestrian accidents in which pedestrians were injured or killed. I think in that year, 6 or 7 were killed in crosswalks, which gave rise to a great deal of concern in the community, as you might understand.
Yes. So what did you decide to do about this?
Well, when we started searching for ways to address that problem, of course, the usual ones were enforcement, and we did a lot of that, and looking around for additional signposting. But we found that there were no easy solutions, and there was nothing new or innovative on the horizon, and most cities are experiencing the same problem.
And how did that change?
Well, we got a lot of media attention, of course, a lot of it negative because this was a rather high rate of injury accidents for a city our size with a population of about 130,000. And what we found was that in any given year in this country, some 5,000 pedestrians are killed and some 95,000 are injured. And that's been pretty much the case for some years now, and everyone was looking for a solution. So as a consequence of the media attention we got, a local inventor and businessman came forward and gave us an idea as a concept that he thought might have some merit. We were getting a lot of suggestions, of course, and evaluating them all. And this one in particular did appear to have some merit, and we pursued it, and that's why we're in this experimental phase now.
And what was his idea?
What he brought to us was the concept that he was familiar with as a pilot. He's a commercial airline pilot, of when the planes are landing, they illuminate the runway. And his thought was, since many drivers don't intentionally look to strike a pedestrian, obviously they do so because they did not see or were unaware the pedestrian was in the crosswalk. And that was the case in our research as well. His concept was, why not illuminate the crosswalks in the same fashion for the period of time that a pedestrian is crossing, so motorists approaching might know to look for a pedestrian before they transverse the crosswalk and strike someone. We didn't know whether that would work or not. We didn't know if it had been tried or not before. I explored it with a number of engineers, both here and at the state level, and found that concept, while it had been thought about, had never really been experimented with because the technology years ago didn't exist to do it effectively. Mike had an idea, it's Mike Harrison, the gentleman who came to us, had an idea that he could use solar technology, the newly produced LEDs, that flash and last for many, many years, don't have to be replaced, in a housing that would be impervious to traffic in the roadway. And as a result of his proposal, we went to the state and said, what do you think? They said, sounds like a good concept, let's experiment with it. The city council in the city put up $30,000, the state put up $30,000, and Mike went about producing a device that we could sort of try and see whether or not it accomplished the objective. And that was back in 1994, and we're still in the testing phase.
And when you have a new invention like this that you're sticking on public roads, what's the process for getting approval?
In California, there's a group called the California Traffic Control Devices Committee. It's legislatively mandated that any new device that the state's going to approve go before this committee. The committee is comprised of engineers from Caltrans, from the Highway Patrol, from various auto clubs and some other groups, and they evaluate every device. And if they think there's merit to testing one, they'll approve a testing process for up to 2 years that requires that we submit quarterly reports to them to give them a progress report on how these prototypes are developing and what changes we may have made. And that's, we have gone to them now with the results of these tests for the last year and a half. And we're getting close to what we believe will be final approval of these devices.
So it's a tough process because you don't want to just stick anything in the road, but this device looks like it might pass.
Well, that's correct. Of course, there's at all the meetings I've attended, there's all kinds of harebrained schemes to improve traffic safety. Occasionally one like this one surfaces that appears to have merit if it'll work. And of course, we've been about trying to prove that it does work, and the data so far suggests that when these are installed and utilized, drivers will begin braking from 20 to 75% faster or sooner than they otherwise would have in tests at the same crosswalk when there were not devices signaling a presence of a pedestrian. So the state's encouraged. In fact, they like the idea so much they're expanding the testing to 6 other cities in California at 10 different sites to test it in a variety of different applications. If all that data continues to support the fact that they're effective, I suspect the state will approve these devices in July of 1997, after which we'll be able to market them in California to whomever wants them. And speaking for one city, I know that there's, like a city our size, I can identify 30 or 40 locations that immediately would benefit from such a device. It seems that the population that's the greatest at risk are young people and the elderly. Our most vulnerable population are the ones that typically end up being injured or killed in crosswalks. If we can diminish by even a small percentage the number of those fatalities or injuries, there's a great economic benefit, and the cost to install these is substantially less than all the other alternatives, such as a mechanically controlled intersection or overhead flashing lights, all of which people and communities demand but have little impact, unfortunately, and are very costly in many cases.
And you say you've identified quite a few intersections that might benefit from these around Santa Rosa. What would you be looking for to determine where you'd put these in?
I think that the locations that are most likely to be considered, at least in this city and probably in any other city that's dealing with this issue, are crosswalks where they transverse a very heavily traveled roadway, whether it be a highway or state highway or a rural route. Crosswalks near schools where there's a heavy concentration of pedestrian traffic in the early morning hours when it's dark or inclement weather where kids are crossing, or in shopping centers or mid-block crosswalks where there's a lot of pedestrian activity and a high volume of traffic.
We're in Santa Rosa with Michael Harrison, who's president of Light Guard Systems. How did you get involved in pedestrian safety?
Well, John, actually, it was a surprise to me. A friend of mine a few years back was involved in a fatal accident, which unfortunately struck a pedestrian in a crosswalk. He had just not seen the pedestrian, and I began to think at that point in time there's got to be something that we can do to help to avoid that from happening in the future.
And what approach did you take?
Well, basically, I thought about it for a little while, and then because I was a pilot for the last 20 years, aviation-related lighting and things came to mind, and I felt that this type of system might well work in the roadways. So what I did was try to take a lighting system and put it in the roadway in front of the driver's eyes so that he could notice that something was happening in front of him.
And once you had this concept, what'd you do with it?
Well, I took it to the police chief of Santa Rosa, California. It happened to be at the same time in about 1991. Santa Rosa was experiencing very heavy problems in the pedestrian-related areas, and there was a public outcry for something, and I took this concept to him, and he helped me to take this to the right individuals through the state process. At this point in time, it was the California State Traffic Controls Devices Committee, and propose it to them.
And what was their reaction?
Well, actually, we got an endorsement for bold and innovative thinking from the panel, and an 8-0 vote in favor to go forward with testing of this device, which was really just a concept with me at the time. And this mock-up concept board is what I had taken to them.
And what are we looking at here? How's it work?
Well, basically, it shows where the signal heads may be placed approximately in the roadway in front of the crosswalk, that the driver of the approaching vehicle would see the lights when they flashed that would help to alert the motorist that a pedestrian was about to or has entered the crosswalk.
So just something to attract the driver's attention so that he knows he should be looking for the pedestrian.
That's right. There's never been anything that alerted the motorist of a pedestrian's presence, and the pedestrian really has things in his favor. He knows he's going to step out there. The driver doesn't. They're unaware of that. They are generally thinking about business or something other than pedestrians jumping out in front of them, and then just generally they don't see somebody coming out in front of them, so I figured we've got to try to get something out there to help get their attention.
Now, what do these devices look like that you stick in the pavement?
Well, actually, I have one right here, John, and it really looks like a raised pavement marker. And it's just about an inch to an inch and a half high, but it's actually countersunk down into the highway so that it's not too high. And you don't even notice them when you drive over them. And they're very bright. They flash on and off, and they are lined right down the driver's view, right down the lane, and they're also come across from the lanes from the other side to the approaching motorist side, and they're just flashing only when the pedestrian enters the crosswalk. When the pedestrian is not in the crosswalk, they deactivate.
So how's the test been going on these so far?
Well, real good. We've had a surprising response. We knew they would be good, but actually they started the braking distance increasing now by up to 75% is the latest studies that have been out there. And we're now in our Phase 3 testing, which is expanded. We have 6 cities in California, and we're hoping to expand now nationally through the Federal Highway Administration with approval to test in the other 50 states across the United States. But the testing itself shows a most favorable results so far.
What's the reaction of the public been?
Very favorable. As a matter of fact, we've had some indications from the initial test sites that we put in that they don't want us to ever take them out.
We're in Oakland, California with Jill Kymack, who's the Bay Trails project manager with the Association of Bay Area Governments. What is the Bay Trail?
The Bay Trail is a 400-mile hiking and bicycling trail system around the San Francisco Bay.
And whereabouts is it going to run?
It goes all the way up to the north of the San Francisco Bay, which is in Napa County, where all the wine is, down to Silicon Valley, which is Santa Clara, San Jose area, through San Francisco, up through Oakland, and over 7 of the Bay Area's 8 bridges.
That's quite a trail. How did this all get started?
It started in 1987. Senator Lockyer, who was a senator from the Hayward area, thought that it would be great to have a trail system around the shoreline, and he got all the Bay Area delegates to support a bill legislating the Association of Bay Area Governments to plan it, and we planned it for 2 years and did an environmental impact report on it, and now for the last 5 years we've been working on implementing it.
So about how much of it is done now?
We're halfway there.
What sort of challenges have you come across trying to build really quite a massive project like this?
When we first started working on this project, I thought it was going to be completely apple pie. All the local jurisdictions supported it, passed resolutions in favor of it. And what we've come to know is that local jurisdictions, cities, have other issues that they're dealing with. Graffiti, crack cocaine, housing problems, huge issues that they're dealing with every day. And trails become a luxury, and often if there isn't enough money to go around, they're the first sections to be cut. So what we're trying to do is to bring in more money for the jurisdictions that is targeted only for bicycle or pedestrian projects. So this last year we spent the entire year trying to get additional funding that would funnel through the Bay Trail project to give to cities to put in Bay Trail segments.
Yeah. And the ports that are done, how has the public reacted to them?
They love them. It is one of the few things that you can go out, it's close to your home, or close to your work, it's right along the shoreline in the most urban area of the San Francisco Bay Area, and all of a sudden you go from your cubicle in a high-rise to a levee that has water on both sides, birds on both sides, and you feel like you're in the wilderness somewhere. It's wonderful when you're out there. And you also have bay winds and breezes and salt air. It's a totally different environment, and you're just out for 45 minutes and you feel like you're on vacation.
So how long do you figure before the whole thing is finished?
The plan says it should be finished in 10 years. There are segments that have to go with freeway improvements because a lot of the freeways and railroad corridors go along the shoreline too. So those segments I think are going to take longer than 10 years. But we'll get them in the plan so when they do get developed, the trail will be in.
We're in the city of Berkeley with Rochelle Wheeler, who's an assistant planner. Tell me, what is an actuated signal?
An actuated signal is one that changes when a car or pedestrian requests that it change. And the way that that's done is that the car is sitting on top of a loop that's underneath the pavement, and the signal will detect that the car is there and change to green. For the pedestrian will need to push a button in order to let the signal know that it's there, and then the signal would change.
And do these work well for bicycles?
No, they don't work very well at all for bicycles. First of all, the bicycle would not be picked up by the loop that picks up the car that's in the pavement. So the bicyclist might wait there wondering why the signal isn't changing for them, or they might go onto the sidewalk and press the button so that the light will change, which is very inconvenient for the cyclists, and also the bicycles are supposed to be on the road and not on the sidewalk, and so we're actually asking them to break the law by coming onto the sidewalk if they're still on their bicycle.
So what solution do people come up with?
Well, what we've done in the city of Berkeley and other cities have done is to put in a loop in the pavement that will pick up the bicycle, pick up that the bicycle is there, and then the light will change to green for the bicycle also.
And how would a bicycle know where they should stop?
Well, we've painted on top of these loops, that we call them, we've painted some stripes where they place their bicycle tires, and in the center of that is a picture of a bicycle so that the bicyclists will know that they need to sit on top of that general area in order to make the signal change.
How well have these been working? Have they been well received?
Yeah, they've been very well received. Many people know about them, but we're still trying to reach out to more people and let them know that these exist. Before this, it was difficult for bicycles to get across many of our busy streets, and it was sort of a matter of dodging traffic or waiting for a long time to get across a busy street.
And a lot of people, when they press that pedestrian button or they pull up to the light, they expect it to change instantly.
Immediately.
What's
Right.
the story?
Right, or they press it 5 to 10 times, hoping that will make it change faster. The story is that usually the signal is going to wait until it has an appropriate time to change. It doesn't want to break up the traffic instantly on the major street that you're trying to cross, and so it's going to wait. Usually the wait will be between 2 and 90 seconds, depending on how long it's been since the signal has changed along the major street. So it will be a little bit of a wait, and sometimes this causes a problem for cyclists, especially who are eager to get along with their trip.
But if you're on the marking on the pavement that tells you that's where the bike detector is, just be patient, it will change.
It will change, yes, that's correct.
We're in Tysons Corner, Virginia. It's a heavily developed area with a lot of office towers, retail complexes. There's very wide streets. The buildings are set back behind huge parking lots. It's not a very pedestrian-friendly area. We're here along Leesburg Pike at an intersection that's not for a road, but for entrances to some of these complexes. On the one side here, we've got 8 or 9 story office buildings with retail on ground level. Across Leesburg Pike, we have Tysons Corner Center, one of the largest malls in the area. But to get across Leesburg Pike from the one to the other, you have an interesting challenge, which is why it's our intersection of the month. Crosswalks aren't marked, and there are no pedestrian signals. But like so many intersections around here, it has dedicated left turn phases. The safe time to go might not be when you see the green light, because you'll have left turn traffic to fight. Crosswalk signals would solve that for you. DOT has a little bit of work to do here.
There was the Federal Highway Administration in 1994 did a national bicycling and walking study. This was a nationwide study, and in it they said, and I'm quoting them, as more American cities are faced with the environmental, traffic, health, land use, and safety problems that come with increased auto dependency, they must find alternative ways to meet transportation needs without sacrificing the quality of their living environment. Promoting bicycling and walking can be among the most cost-effective way to meet these needs. I think the authors of that study had the Capitol Crescent Trail in mind when they wrote those words. A few years back, I sat in a conference committee between the Senate and the House on the ICE bill, the Intermodal Surface Transportation Efficiency Act, at 2 o'clock in the morning while we were working out some provisions to get some flexibility, some alternative use for some of that money. And that's the money that's being used right here in order to make the trail possible and now to make the bridge possible. So I really feel that those efforts are really paying off, and I'm...
Senator Sarbanes talked about the study about needing better transportation alternatives, but there was a recreation study done about 10 years ago that said our most used recreational facilities are walking and biking trails. They are more used than tennis courts or any other facility.
And certainly there is a tremendous need for it. We can tell from the joggers, the hikers, and I have a quote that came from a letter that a constituent wrote to me on behalf of the Crescent Trail when it was originating for the Georgetown branch. And this constituent said, we really need the Crescent Trail to shake loose the mental cobwebs that sedentary life produces in many of us.
We're along the Capitol Crescent Trail in Bethesda, Maryland with Frank Ridge. And you've biked across the U.S., you've been in countries all over the place and seen a lot of different trails and been on a lot of different roads. A trail like this can get pretty busy on a nice afternoon. That has the potential to create conflict between users. As a bicyclist, what do you have to watch out for? What do you do to avoid creating conflict with pedestrians or joggers?
Well, I can sum it up in one word. Courtesy, or 2 words, being considerate and being mindful of the fact that others have a right to the trail as well as you do. Pedestrians sometimes do have a tendency to be a little forgetful because they can frequently be in groups of 3 or 4, and it isn't at all unusual for them to literally spread across the trail. Now, it's the responsibility of a biker when he comes along, he or she, to sound off when they're approaching pedestrians and say, passing on the left, say it loud and clear. Now, they should do that in every case. Unfortunately, they don't. I would say that those of us who bike a lot, those of us who belong to our local bike clubs, do. The problem we have that's becoming greater is with rollerbladers. Now, I don't mind the rollerbladers, but it gets a little sticky when they're wearing those Walkman things in their ears, and they can't hear a thing between the noise of the skates and the whatever it is they're listening to. They can't hear you when you sound off, passing on the left. And when you get a youngster who, well, not a youngster, you're seeing some you're seeing some old people on rollerblades now, which I think is great, incidentally. But and those that aren't very experienced, they're weaving all over the place, and they're downright dangerous. So, as I said to begin with, I think it's a matter of courtesy. It's a matter of being thoughtful and considerate. I'd rather have the problem of what to do on the trail so that it's being used properly for everyone than not have trails at all.
So it's up to the bicyclist to call out on your left. What's the pedestrian to do then?
The pedestrian should stay to the right. I've seen pedestrians walking along the trail, and they're on the wrong side. Well, we're not in England. We're in the United States. And we walk on the right here. We drive on the right here. And that's what they should do. And pedestrians should be mindful. If you're walking two abreast, for example, and if it's a wide trail such as this, that's no problem. But some of the trails get a little narrow, and if they are walking two abreast and somebody sounds off passing on the left, they ought to go into a single file. Just as bikers, incidentally. Bikers should not be riding two abreast when they're passing people. We are guilty of that all too often, and I think that's a serious problem. You get a problem with youngsters on bikes, and here I blame the parent. Children should be taught at a very early age that they have certain responsibilities when they're riding a trail, and one of them is courtesy. You have to think of the others using it.
Visit us on the internet at www.pedestrians.org.